Hello and welcome to today's daily news analysis. So today, 2nd of March 2022, we are covering the Hindu newspaper's Delhi edition. As part of our initiative, I make it a point to share questions for mains answer writing practice, and the concept is very simple. You are preparing for the exam, you need to know as to how to use newspaper for your mains examination. Mains because it requires subjective knowledge, right? You need to elaborate upon things. And in the course of process, when you're writing your answers, you will do that value addition work. And when you're reading the newspaper, you will identify those facts and figures. So that will also help you with your prelims. So this short video of 40 minutes, 35-40 minutes will help you with the newspaper, with your mains answer writing as well as your prelims. In fact, this is all you need for your current affairs preparation. Now, you want your answers evaluated, so that also you can get it done. So for free evaluation, up to 2 answers per week. So you can write your answers on pen and paper, you can maintain a register, so that will act as your notes also. So just write your answers, make a PDF and share it with me on my Telegram or on WhatsApp. The details are there in the description box below. Now coming to the topics, so we have 2 topics where I have mains based questions, so I'm covering this first and then comes the other news. Now coming to this news, this is with reference to the early introduction of accountability bill. So there are activists who are saying that, see, when the elections were to take place in Rajasthan, so at that time you said that we will introduce the right to service guarantee and accountability bill. Now you are in the government and you are not introducing this bill. Now the question arises as to what is this accountability bill or right to service guarantee and accountability bill. So as the name goes, it is right to service. That is, citizens have a right to service. So they can stake a claim on the government, and that is a legal claim. So that is a legal obligation on the part of the government to ensure that services are delivered to the citizens, that too in a time-bound manner. So this is important. In fact, this goes in line with the spirit of rights-based approach for development or rights-based approach for governance, right? So the common thing is rights-based approach. So one is this. And how will this help? There is another person from a civil society organization, Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan Yojana. So he says that, see, this accountability, that law that is there, would not only help the people struggling to get the benefits of the government schemes, but it will also ensure effective implementation of the budget of the schemes as well as other budgetary announcements at the grassroots level. So in fact, it is telling us that, see, with reference to the government schemes, there is a problem. With governance, there is a problem. So one is that people are not able to get the benefits. Then the implementation is very bad. And if we are able to have such a thing, then at the grassroots level, the governance or service delivery will improve and the lives will be affected positively. So one is this. Then there is another demand, that is Right to Healthcare Act. So it's very similar, but only service of healthcare. Now you can think that healthcare is emerging as a very important concept, especially given the COVID pandemic and how we saw that the healthcare sector was so feeble, right? And we know that, okay, health infrastructure is not there, our budgetary allocation is very, very weak, doctor to population ratio is very weak. So in that regard, shouldn't we have that the government provides us some sort of a legal guarantee that you have to ensure that healthcare is available to us? Shouldn't right to health be made a fundamental right? The National Health Policy 2017 actually advocated that right to health should be made a fundamental right. And the key idea is that the government should be accountable with reference to the healthcare sector so that they are making efforts so that anybody can get access to the healthcare services or inclusive healthcare. Now, if we see this article closely, we have the reference of these new bills that is being asked upon. So, Social Accountability Bill and Right to Healthcare Act. Now, in this news mains based question, I have the Social Accountability Bill that I am discussing. And what we see is that there are some pressure groups there are these activists, these are these civil society organizations which is putting pressure on the government or on the legislature that you please bring this law. And these pressure groups are distinct from political parties. Political parties also apply pressure on the government, especially those in the opposition. But they remain outside, they don't contest elections, that is the difference. And this is not just with reference to governance, it is with reference to environment, human rights, criminalization of politics, decriminalization of politics, Association of Democratic Reforms, People's Union for Civil Liberties. So these are certain organizations over here. In fact, this is specifically stated in your GS2 syllabus also, and UPSC every alternate or 3 years they ask a question on this. Okay, let's come to this social accountability bill. We'll have a lot of opportunities with the pressure groups. So first question is performance of welfare schemes, right? Number of welfare schemes are there. So that are implemented for vulnerable sections is not effective as it is deemed to be. In this context, discuss the proposed law on social accountability. In fact, I'll tell you, there was a question that was asked. So this was with reference to the Public Services Code, right? Public Services Code, should it be introduced? How will it help improve the governance? So in that light, again, a question was asked, and the concept, the name is different, but the concept is very, very similar. Okay, let's come to this question now. So first thing is we go with the statement, we elaborate the statement, right? So performance of welfare schemes. So we have two issues. One is that people are not able to get the benefit, right? So we can say that it is not inclusive. There are so many schemes like NREGA, National Food Security Act. In fact, think about it, the Aadhaar was introduced, and one of the provisions of Aadhaar was that it is introduced for improving the delivery of welfare schemes, right? For Food Security Act, for NREGA, whatever, you need to have an Aadhaar card, and that Aadhaar card people didn't have, they didn't get the services. So it had resulted in exclusionary effect. So it also leads to exclusion. And the implementation is also very bad. NREGA, Food Security Act, or in any of the laws of for welfare of the people, large number of people are left out, like agriculture insurance. If the schemes are so good, and if they are able to do the welfare of the people, then why are the farmers protesting? Why are the farmers protesting for the monsoon? Please give us compensation, please waive off our farm loans. Why is that happening? So there is definitely a problem. So on multiple fronts, we have this situation. Right, primarily this inclusive, that is not able to get the benefits, then implementation is very bad, and when the implementation is there, the performance is very, very poor, right? So these are things. Now I'll add one more thing to it. NREGA is there. So NREGA scheme, one is people are not able to get work. Now when they are able to get work, then in that case what happens is they are not able to get payment in time. And imagine the people who are seeking work under NREGA, they are the most vulnerable people, they from poorest of the poor people. So them not getting paid for work for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days is pathetic, right? So in that regard, there has to be some sort of an accountability on the government. And what accountability should it be? What accountability should it be there? And I'll add one more thing as to why are we having this problem also, that performance of welfare scheme is not very, very good. So I'll add one thing over here, that basic issue is that awareness is not there. People are not aware. So when people are not aware, they are not able to ask questions. They are not able to stake a claim on the government, right? So awareness is not there. Then the other issue is that when awareness is not there, there is no participation. And when I say participation in this context, it means demand from the government, that you said NREGA will be there, I'll get right to work, why am I not getting this? You have this law, National Food Security Act, where food will be provided at a very subsidized rate. It is a law. Why is it not there? MSP is there. Why? But it is not provided. It is only in certain pockets of the country only. So awareness and then participation. And what is this amounting to? Accountability. And what we are seeing right now, that government doesn't have accountability. In fact, I'll add that with reference to accountability, the government is basically reflecting of apathy. that this is a normal thing, chalta hai attitude. There are so many poor people die only, so what, right? So that is the attitude, apathy of the government. So this is the problem. And one more thing is inability to access the rights what the government is providing, unable to access the welfare scheme. So one is that government is not able to provide you. Other is you having the ability to access it, right? So this is one more issue that you can bring about. So these are basically inabilities. Now in this regard, what can be done? And in this reference, we have to introduce the concept of social accountability bill. So as it says, right to service guarantee. So what would it be? The government is providing a right that see this service shall be provided. This service should be provided in a time bound manner. Right? So this is there. Now in this reference, yesterday only we did Seva Uttam model. So citizen charter should be there, the government clearly stating it, making this information public, right? So this should be there. So participation should be there, and then a system of accountability. And with reference to all of this, there should be a system of grievance redressal, that is karwai, right? So once this is introduced, we will be able to get a legal framework for all of this. That is the government creating awareness, government setting timelines for service delivery, creating a framework for grievance redressal. So all of this will flow from the law, and if it doesn't do, the government can be taken to the courts. Right, so this is there, and naturally in that process it will help in better service delivery, and it will lead to more inclusion in welfare scheme. We will find greater effectiveness, right? So it's basically stated over here only. Okay, a cautionary tale. We had this intergovernmental panel on climate change, so they have released a report, and it is saying that because of this global warming that is taking place, so the climatic temperature is increasing to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So since the age of industrialization, since then, the mean temperature has increased to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And naturally, this will increase the probability of disasters. Or let me put it this way, that this is climate change, that is global warming that is taking place, and it will change the disaster profile of India. In light of the same, state policy measures taken for disaster risk mitigation. I am very specific. Disaster risk mitigation. I am not asking also what are the commitments of India with reference to climate change. I am simply stating disaster risk, what is the government doing? As simple as that. And the PIB was not very helpful, by the way. That's why I have not added this. Okay, so you have the content. Actually, you are getting all of it over here. So what is the disaster profile of India? You have to establish this, and for this you need certain facts. So you need certain facts over here, right? So you have to establish this and then say, okay, fine, because of this climate change, human induced this thing, you can quote the IPCC and then say that the gravity of the situation will get worse. So we have certain things. For example, the monsoonal cycle will get affected. And at present, the National Disaster Management Authority says that 68% of our land, yes, it is vulnerable to disasters. In fact, today we are also talking about having mega droughts, that is droughts that are extending beyond decades, to 2 decades, 3 decades, and even for centuries. So 68% of our is drought prone, and imagine what can the disruptions in the monsoonal cycle may do, and that too on agriculture and welfare of the people. 12% of our country is prone to floods. In fact, recently we are also seeing more and more incidents of urban floods. Why is this so? Is it related to climate change? Then cyclones. So cyclones is also an issue, tropical cyclones, and these days we are finding, normally it is a trend that we will see cyclones coming like this on the eastern coast of India. Nowadays, you see for yourself, if you can remember what was happening in past 5-6 years, very rarely there was a cyclone that was there. But these days, cyclones are coming on the western coast. It's remaining to the sea only because geographically speaking, it should go like this. I mean, it should go from the east to west, Look anywhere in the world, tropical cyclone goes like this. So it doesn't affect us like this, but it disrupts the rains. It causes floods, untimely rains, cloudburst. So it indirectly affects the climate, and onion prices, tomatoes, etc. gets disrupted because of that. Right, so these are there. And yes, when all of this is taking place, this is a disaster, natural disasters, but natural disasters are also leading to displacement. It is leading to, so large number of people are getting displaced because of it. So we have we have a report from Climate Risk Index by German Watch. This is important. So it says 1.8 million people in India have been displaced because of this. And with reference to the world, about 10 billion, with reference to India, the cost is attributed to 10 billion. So economic cost of the disasters is 10 billion. And for the entire world, it is 6 trillion. So you can imagine what will climate change do to this. We are already in a very fragile state, and this will actually get worse by this. Right? Here there is an indication of heat wave linked deaths or reduced productivity. Heat wave is pronounced. It's not like a wave is coming. It's just that high temperature. So temperature that is above normal. I think 5 degrees above normal is heat wave. So that is there. And because of this, we have drought also. So water is not available. Heating load of the country, that will increase. Cooling load will increase because of this. So it is leading to more deaths. Now I'll refer to this again, one more thing. That 600 million of our population is water stressed. That is, half of our population is water stressed. So on what basis? Composite Water Management Index. Right, so this you have to establish. Now, state policy measures taken for disaster risk mitigation. So what are these measures? So first of all, we have a Disaster Management Act. So obviously we were already having disaster management system, but we have provided a legal framework for disaster response. We want a coordinated support. We want support at the center, at the state. So for that, we have created institution or a institutional framework for that purpose. Right. So Disaster Management Act. For that, we have the National Disaster Management Authority. Likewise, we have at the state level also, we have National Disaster Response Force. We have State Disaster Response Force. Right. So these are the things. So PIBs were basically about this only. Now I'll add another dimension to this. For disaster mitigation, we have to invest in early warning system. And we have been investing in early warning system. That is, we are able to predict. These days, we are able to predict, okay, this is going to be the weather like this, or cyclone is going to come. So early warning system has to be invested upon. And that is primarily coming from the space. In fact, we also had a SARC satellite for disaster risk mitigation in the Indian Ocean region. Right, so we have been working on this. We have been launching several satellites for this purpose. And when I say for cooperation in the Indian Ocean region, that means that we are having international cooperation or multilateral cooperation with reference to disaster risk mitigation. So with reference to tsunamis or providing disaster response across the region, we are working on it. We are also the signatories of the Sendai framework. Right, earlier it was Yogo framework and then Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction. So these are certain steps that we are taking. Okay, now coming to the news, and we'll quickly cover this up. So GST revenues cross 1.3 lakh crores in February. Now the issue thing is, why are we? Obviously it is good for the government. It means government has more money, but there is another significance to this also. See, I'll tell you. First of all, what is GST? GST is indirect tax. Right? Indirect tax on what? Indirect tax that is coming from goods and services. So all the taxes that were there in the country, be it the central tax, be it the sales tax, be it anything, they are merged together into a single umbrella known as the GST. So whenever you buy a product or whenever you buy a service, you're paying a GST on this. Now, if I say that the GST is increasing, if the GST collection is increasing, what does this mean? It means there is a demand for goods and services. People have paid. This cannot lie, right? GST numbers. So this is a proxy for the GDP growth within the country. It is reflective of the production of goods and services within the country. Right, so this is how we can use this thing. This is how it is significant. Yes, it is obviously reflective of the fiscal space of the government, that is the amount of revenue that the government is getting. Okay, there is a reference of GST compensation cess. So over and above GST, there is a small percentage that tax on tax basically, where the revenue is collected and the loss of revenue that is taking place to different states, because the taxes of the states, everything is merged together and we have a single tax. So the estimated loss has to be paid back from the center to the states. So that is coming from the GST compensation cess. Cess is a tax on tax. Right, so this is it. Now the another question is, there is a reference of import of services were 12% higher, and we are talking with reference to GST. So is GST applicable on imports also? Something coming to your country, that is actually custom duty. So is custom duty part of the GST? And the answer is yes. So it is not just within the country, but it is also something that is coming from the country, outside of the country. So that is counted as the IGST, integrated GST, goods and services tax. So interstate, basically when interstate trade is taking place, then one pays IGST. So the things that are coming from outside the country also, that are brought under the bracket of IGST, and they go directly to the center. Okay, so this is there. Now with reference to things that are coming, I researched this, so I got this harmonized systems code. So we have a system of harmonized systems code to levy the GST. So this is basically a set of codes as to these are the goods and services, goods or commodities that are coming, not services. So they are put, they are arranged in the form of a code, that this thing is there, so this is coming into this class of category, or this is this code. So this is coming from the harmonized systems code. Right, so this is it. So it is an industry classification system, and this was coming from the World Custom Organization. I checked this is not an agency of the United Nations. Right, and this helps with reference to certain things like global trade, so World Trade Organization agreements on custom valuations and rules of origin. And what is rules of origin? Rules of origin is basically when we have this free trade agreement. So when we have this rules of origin is basically with reference to things that are made within the country. It will go much deeper actually if I start explaining this, but yes, just be restricted to this. I'll cover this concept later. Right, so this is it. TRS BJP, so this is, we are referring to Telangana, TRS. So spar over governor not addressing the budget session. Right, so this is the basic thing. So they are saying that it is customary for the governor to address. So BJP party is saying, why didn't the governor address the first session of the year, that is the budget session? Okay, so now you know that first session is of the year is done by the governor. In fact, we have Article 87 also, motion of thanks with reference to president. Likewise, we have with governor also. So when the first election takes place, first time election takes place, be it for the parliament or be it for the state legislature. So when the first time the MLAs or the MPs are sitting, the session is summoned by the governor and the governor addresses the house. Clear? So this is this first time the election takes place, first time after the election when the sitting is there, and also the first session of the year, right? The first time the session, the people come together. So that is again when the governor or the president addresses them. So every year that takes place. So it is coming under motion of thanks. So the governor basically or the president says, he's given a thing to read. And he says, okay, fine, these are the objectives of the government. We did this last year, all those things, and then it is put to vote. So it is both for parliament as well as the this thing. Now they are saying that, see, some technical ground that, see, last year that was there in September 24 to October 8, last session that was there, it was never prorogued. So technically it is the same session that is continuing, which I do not agree with this logic over here. Okay. So let's do this. So governor's address and motion of thanks. This is the rules with reference to Andhra legislature, right? So you can see the governor may address the legislature. So same thing over here. Now with reference to the sessions of the house. So what is a session? Now you have to be very clear. The session is basically the broad category when the House convenes. So we have 3 sessions. So for January, February, and then there is a break, and then again till May, right? So this is the budget session, and then there is a gap, and then again the session convenes, and then winter session. So this is session, and within the session there are days like, so these are basically sittings, right? So like first day, second day, third day. So there are several days within the session itself, right? So this is the basic concept over here. So when you hear that this house is adjourned, then the governor says the house is adjourned. So the governor is saying that the sitting for this moment is paused, right? You can go back. The session is still in action. For the session to close, the governor prorogues it, right? So prorogation of the house takes place as it is mentioned over here. Doubts over defense supplies to India. Naturally, with reference to this Ukraine crisis, we have certain issues over here. So specifically, we are concerned about the defense partnership, and both Moscow and Kyiv are very important. And why are these doubts? It is primarily because of the sanctions that are imposed, and the sanctions are becoming more and more stringent. Up till now, we were seeking some sort of an exemption, but because of this Russian invasion of Ukraine, or that attempted invasion, it will be very difficult for India to seek waiver from sanctions. And the US sanctions are known as CAATSA, that is Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Got it? America's adversaries via sanctions. And this means if any country trades with that country where US has invoked sanctions, then they had it, basically. They cannot do this, otherwise they will also be an adversary of America. So that is the law of USA. So in this regard, we have the modernization of the AN-32 transport aircraft. Then we have a lot of spares. We have the Sukhoi planes, AN-32, and many other things. So they have been affected. Now what have we want spares and supplies for our planes or aircrafts? How will we get them given the sanctions? So our fleet will not be operable. And in this regard, what about if we are having tensions with China, and most of our defense hardware is coming from Russia? If they are not serviceable, then how will we, defense will get very weakened because of this. So this is problematic. And with reference to China, when we say, then USA and India are collaborating on this front again. So we need to find a middle ground, and we need to use creative diplomacy here. Right, so these are basic things that has been highlighted over here. So one is the sanctions, and other is that war that is taking place. Naturally, their defense manufacturers will be focusing on supplying these arms to Russia or Kyiv also, that is Ukraine. Ukraine is in a battered state, but at least till Russia, they are trying to do it. Right, so this is there. Then we have our S-400 missiles that we are getting from, anti-aircraft missiles that we are getting from Russia over here. So the delivery is already started from December. That means payment, etc. is done. Now what will we do if the sanction is there? That means we don't get the weaponry. And given the heightened tensions, and it almost seemed like there may be a war between India and China at some point of time, and not having these weapons will be a great disadvantage. Right. So these are the things that we see with reference to the sanctions, and India is stuck up because of this war. Okay, now very quickly, a brief overview. So again, we have semiconductor chip shortage, and in this regard, I have discussed this many times as to what can the government do. So we have the production linked incentive scheme, right? So this is there. So for promotion of semiconductors and electronics manufacturing within the country. And in fact, Europe also is trying to reduce its dependence on China and Korea, Taiwan, so that they become self-sufficient. So the entire world is thinking on that front. So in this regard, you can see that semiconductor shortage is affecting the supply of electronics, automobiles, and many other things. Even solar photovoltaic cells, the renewable energy. Ukraine war will lift import bill and widen current account deficit. How? Basically, what is the most important thing that we are importing? It is also known as the black gold, that is crude. So crude energy will become more expensive, and we are buying this energy in dollar form. So we have to spend more dollars to get the crude energy on which our economy relies upon. So it will increase the current account deficit. War may spur shift of IT jobs from Russia, Ukraine to India. So because of this war that is there and the Eastern Europe being so sensitive, the countries would like to invest in places that are safe havens like India, etc., where probability of war is less. Right, so they will like to invest in such areas. So we will have more IT. We may have more IT jobs in India. So that is what this article is saying. This is a brief update about this Ukraine issue, right? Student shiver and chill. We are trying to get back our students, but it's becoming more and more difficult time and again. An Indian student got unfortunately killed. Russian Brits stalls rescue of Indians from Ukraine. So that is it actually. Right then, so this essentially concludes our analysis video on the news, and please do like, share and subscribe. So today this video will get late, so it will get uploaded by 11 a.m. But that was because of a technical glitch that took place. Suddenly my pen wasn't working. So, but normally our news articles will be posted by 10:30 a.m. It will be streaming live by 10:30. Right then, so this is it from my side. Bye bye, take care, all the best. Bye.